So the U of M has had some roles and is playing some current roles and is interested in figuring out and hearing from all of you about what your needs are and how can we shape the agenda at the U of M to best fit your needs. So just coming up, we're starting a local foods task force at the University of Minnesota that will involve all the people, the voices across the U of M system involved in one way or another with local foods, and beginning the process of querying citizens, saying if we were going to carve a strategic agenda together about what you all needed and wanted to help support local food systems, with the university's resources, how could we be most helpful as a partner in that endeavor? So we'll be doing that this year. And then there's a list here of some of the other research and efforts going on, including an attempt to convene a statewide local foods commission with people from the nonprofit sector, the philanthropic sector, state agencies, producers and growers, and the U of M thinking through long-term what are the needs of the local food systems around the state and what kind of strategic and targeted and synergized investments can we make to create lots of organic valleys and to create lots of small producers like Terry and to provide support to the nonprofits who are giving leadership in these important areas and to expand the agenda of support at the places like the University of Minnesota to continue to support local food systems development. So I'm going to stop here, and before I turn it over to Caroline, we want to take a couple of, if you have any quick questions, we'll have a broader conversation period after Caroline's presentation, but does anybody have any quick questions or comments before I pass the baton to Caroline? Yes?
The price of diesel will probably move that 10% a lot quicker than 2017. Okay,
that's the good news.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, then we better have a plan in place.
That's right. And that goes, I mean, that's exactly right. That's why we need to start kind of thinking on our toes. There's a ton of creativity, but we're going to need that Sector C, and that local foods in Sector C have to overlap in a pretty significant way pretty darn soon.
Oh, I was just going to ask, and it may be for afterward too, what kind of experience you have or knowledge you have of the farm-to-school program and the support training or whatever? Are you involved in any of that?
A little bit, yeah. And I can talk to you more, we can talk more about it after Caroline's presentation, but there's just some movement afoot within the University of Minnesota to start to create a more comprehensive extension program to support school districts, to provide resources and training and that kind of thing. There's also some national organizations that are just getting off the ground to provide help with local foods procurement for school districts, as well as tools for school food services to make shifts toward healthier foods. So we can talk a little bit about that. I'd be happy to give you information. Chuck?
Just a comment on this red tape. We're sure going to need some help to get through that. An example, we had it was last summer or the summer before, we had a whole bunch of wonderful tomatoes and peppers and cucumbers, and we had such a surplus, I tried to give them away to the senior center. And they said, literally, we have more, our industry is more heavily regulated than the nuclear power industry.
Right.
And we just can't take fresh food.
And the weird thing is they'll leave the fresh food out, but let this trans fat process nightmare in. So it's a really, I mean, the regulations are not only very tight, they're very strange. Yeah. Terry?
Just a quick comment about the cost of fuel and how that impacts the movement. Because I really see it as cutting both ways. And I think we need to be really, really careful because, I mean, farmers, if you're selling your product locally, you're still transporting it, and you're paying the same amount, only probably for a much less efficient vehicle. A diesel locomotive can go for miles and miles and miles and miles, much further than your pickup truck is going to be able to go on a gallon of diesel fuel. So this whole supply chain and distribution piece is going to be absolutely critical. It's not a foregone conclusion that that high fuel prices are necessarily going to cut for local food systems, not if we don't solve that distribution and supply chain piece.
It's quite complex. It really is. Yep, there's a lot of factors involved in it. Yep, thanks for that comment. Well, Caroline, why don't I turn it over to you, and then we'll take some more comments and questions. Okay.
Well, so a funny thing happened on my way to LaCrescent, and that is that my notes for this are sitting on my desk in my office in Lewiston, which is probably a blessing for all of us because I'm not really a presenter, I'm a doer. And I'm going to start somewhere in the middle of where I thought I was going to start and feed off of Terry's and a lot of the comments about fuels. And then I'll maybe go back to where I think I was going to begin. The issue of, okay, so Maggie, who, can you just pick more contrasting people to work together like this? I feel so homespun in my clothes here. Well, Maggie can...
I got my grandma's clothes on.
She does. Well, let's just say you carry them a lot differently than I do. So Maggie articulates more beautifully and more effectively than anyone I know the whole situation of what we're all working in on our own levels and what I'm doing as a staff worker with the Land Stewardship Project. And I view myself as a doer. I resonate with all the words up here. I just can't speak them out very well. So what I'm going to talk about and have you help me to talk about is really the doing on the ground of this thing called local foods. So let me go back to the distribution thing. One of the things that I am doing in this southeastern region with a little overflow into western Wisconsin is I've spent this whole last winter talking with farmers who need better transportation for their products, both this way laterally within the region and this way between primarily here and the Twin Cities, which I have come to appreciate as a very, very important market destination for our food because it provides the price and the outlet for our farmers down here to be able to continue to farm the way we want them to farm in a sustainable fashion. So I am less scoffing of the Twin Cities as a market, but at the same time, I'm hugely encouraging of those same farmers trying to sell their stuff locally, and that's another piece of my work. But the distribution thing has everything to do with fuel efficiency as well as labor, which is an enormous drain on our farmers and their ability and their efficiency in moving their food from their farms to wherever they need to sell it. And that includes locally, 20 miles away or 200 miles away. And it includes how they're going to get paid. And it includes things like whether they need a refrigerated truck or a freezer. And it includes whether and where there is a warehouse or a drop-off point for them so that they're not driving 100 miles to get to the truck that's going to carry it to the other 100 miles. So this is a very grassroots effort that I'm involved in. It has come from the farmers themselves. It's being moved by farmers who are excellent farmers, but also very savvy marketers, and they have realized that they cannot sell the food they want to grow to the places they want to sell it without figuring out the trucking in between. So a couple of them have bought trucks this winter. We're having a meeting tomorrow at the Lewiston office, and if you'd like to come, you're very welcome. This thing about transportation and distribution and warehousing is indeed at its beginning stage, but it is truly happening. And we are trying to address things like how do we keep our local food local? And how local is okay. We've done a transportation survey that I'm just starting to get back. And some people's idea of local is 6 miles from their farm. That's it. That they don't want their stuff going any further than 6 miles. Somebody else in the survey said 400 miles is just fine for them. Now, my husband and I, when we did our survey, we started out saying 60 miles, and then we changed it. And just said, somewhere between 0 and 60 miles is all right for us. We're very, very intentional about wanting to grow our food for this region down here, and we price accordingly and deliver accordingly. So, distribution. So let me back up for just a moment and say that Maggie referenced Land Stewardship Project a few times. We look at our mission of sustainable communities as being born on and inspired by farms and farmers. And we have honed our work into 3 main categories: the community-based food systems efforts that I'm involved in down here, policy work, which takes food and farming and farmland and active farmland management from the local control issue, township level, all the way up to the federal farm bill. And then we also look at farm training, and our program is called Beginning Farmers, but in fact a good number of our students, if you will, are already farming, but recognize that they want to farm differently, in a more sustainable fashion, and in a way that will guarantee that they're farming tomorrow and 5 years and 25 years from now and not going out of business. So I also want to speak for a moment about how my food systems work down here is manifesting itself, and the distribution piece is a big piece right now. I'm also involved in the institutional markets, and it's because hospitals down here, nursing homes down here, the Mayo Clinic down here, they eat a lot of food, which means that lots of food that's grown down here, an almost endless supply of the food that we grow or could grow, could stay right here, could be bought and sold right here, or I should say sold and bought right here. And that is a fantastic idea in my mind, because my ulterior motive, if I have to be honest, is that I want more and more farmland being managed in a sustainable fashion.